Hello everyone and welcome to the Jackers YouTube channel. I am obviously Jackers, and this video will be talking about Star Wars The Phantom Menace, and this will be the first in a long series of videos talking about Star Wars and reviewing the Skywalker Saga. So if you want to see more, like and subscribe and be on the lookout for those upcoming videos, and with all that said, let's begin. Okay, so I'm going to start out with a review, and later after that, or a summary of the Phantom Menace, and after that we will review it and analyze it, and I will overall give you my impression of this god-awful movie. With all that said, let's begin. Okay, so we open up to the Radiant 7 flying into a massive fleet of Trade Federation battleships. These ships are obviously blockading Naboo, as we will find out later that these ships lands and the two Jedi are escorted to a waiting room, and once the Jedi are in the room, their ship is destroyed immediately. Nute Gunray, who is the head of the Trade Federation, finds out that the ambassadors are Jedi Knights, and he is becoming very worried. We then get our first look at the Emperor, and he orders Gunray to kill the Jedi immediately. Right out of the gate, we are shown how much people fear the Jedi, or how their power can be, how people know how powerful they are already. And so the Jedi are trapped inside their room with toxic gas being pumped in. This starts our first look at this is our first action scene in this movie, and the Jedi use some kind of breathing technique or something with the Force, like a force breathing technique, I'm not really sure, and they wait for the doors to be opened, which the droids do. We don't know how much time passes, but we can only assume like at least a couple minutes. So they open the door, and the two Jedi just immediately mow all the droids down. They quickly run to the ship's headquarters, where all like the Nute Gunray and all the major Trade Federation ambassadors are. They get to the door, and we see that they have blocked themselves off. The Trade Federation has blocked themselves off so as not to meet with the Jedi. Quickly, Qui-Gon puts his lightsaber through the walls and starts to cut through it. While this is happening, Obi-Wan is fighting off droids, and right as Qui-Gon is about to break through, destroyers show up, and the two Jedi quickly run off. They escape through a ventilation shaft and find out the Trade Federation is planning a massive invasion on Naboo. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon hop into a ship that is being transported down to the planet. The scenes between the Jedi getting down to the planet show how the Emperor's plan is early in stages. We see how the Emperor is talking to Nute Gunray and how he's trying to already get his reach into the Jedi Order. Now, once we get returned to the Jedi and they're on Naboo, we meet one of the most hated characters in Star Wars history, if not the most hated, and that's Jar Jar Binks, obviously. He is run over by Qui-Gon, while the Trade Federation's massive vehicles are tearing down everything in their path. Jar Jar then somehow convinces the Jedi to go to Gungan City. At Gungan City, everybody is fearful of Jar Jar, and the officials take the three to the king. In front of the king, Qui-Gon uses force manipulation to convince the king to give them a ship to ride in, or a boat, or submarine, or some kind of transportation that goes underwater to the capital of Naboo, with Jar Jar as a navigator. This pointless scene of them navigating through the water and there is always a bigger fish line takes them to the capital. Nute Gunray is talking to Queen Amidala, meanwhile, and trying to make her sign a treaty that would make their invasion legal. This leads to the Queen and her group being captured, and this will cause the Jedi to rescue them and fly off into space. Now, this scene is not, the summary of that isn't really in depth, but it's just a bunch of action, and that's basically what just happens. This is a summary, by the way. Anyways, in this rescue scene in the hangar, we get our first glimpse of Darth Maul in his double-bladed lightsaber. The group then enters the Naboo Royal Starship and flees the planet. Before they could enter hyperspace, however, they are attacked and damaged, and we get our first look at R2 and the other droids trying to repair the ship. R2 repairs it, and he is celebrated by being introduced to the Queen. After this, they quickly go to Tatooine because it is out of reach of the Trade Federation and they need to repair the ship. Newt Gunray is talking to Sidious and explaining how the ship got away. Sidious then says that he is having Darth Maul track down the ship because he doesn't trust the Trade Federation. Arriving at Tatooine, they realize that the hyperdrive generator has to be replaced, and that means that they have to go into town and purchase a new one. So this odd little group of people that includes Qui-Gon, Jar Jar, and the Queen's handmaid, which we obviously find out later that is the actual Queen. They enter and we meet Watto and Anakin Skywalker. Watto and Qui-Gon start talking about parts, and Anakin and Padme have their very first interaction. Very weird, because as of knowing what goes on in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, that's a very weird starting point. But Watto won't accept any Republic credits, so they need to find another way to make money. Anakin follows the group for some reason after they leave the store, and he invites them to his house because of the impending sandstorm. At Anakin's house, we meet C-3PO for the first time, and we learn that Anakin likes to pod race. Anakin wants to enter the local pod race, but Shmi, who is his mother, doesn't want him to. She eventually does, and this is how they're going to get the money they need. The construction of their pod begins, and they start to prepare for the race. Qui-Gon takes a blood sample from Anakin, and we are introduced to the second most hated thing in all of Star Wars, which is midichlorians. Obi-Wan then takes that report from Qui-Gon and analyzes his blood. And if we find out that Anakin has a higher midichlorian count than Yoda. After all this, the next day, a deal is struck between Watto and Qui-Gon. The deal is that Watto will provide the entry money, and if Anakin loses, he gets their ship, which is a very expensive, nice ship. But if Anakin wins, Watto gets the prize money, minus the money they need for the part, obviously. And so basically, Watto wins no matter what. In the pre-race hangar, Qui-Gon convinces Watto to agree to set Anakin free if he wins. Qui-Gon tries to get Anakin's mother, but Watto would not have it. The race, Anakin wins, obviously wins, because that would mean if he didn't win, the movie would be over. So they head towards back of the ship with Anakin and the part they need. Darth Maul shows up right as they're about to enter the ship, and Qui-Gon and Darth Maul have a pretty cool short battle. Now it is short, however, but I think it's a really cool battle because we've never seen. This is our very first look back in 1995 of a modern Star Wars battle. Because before then we've only had two guys standing still and hit each other with their lightsaber. And I'll get into that later on in the video. So after this, they all enter the ship, and Anakin and Obi-Wan meet for the first time. And the ship, they reach Coruscant, and the group meets up with the Supreme Chancellor and Senator Palpatine. Palpatine is manipulating the Queen and trying to convince her to replace the current Supreme Chancellor. But before the Senate hearing, we get to our first look at the Jedi Council and all the Jedis on it. And Anakin is brought before them. Qui-Gon explains how he thinks that Anakin is the chosen one and that he should be trained. But the Council will not have it because they sense fear and they don't like his future. At the Senate hearing, there are a lot of arguments, but what eventually ends up happening is Queen Amidala moves for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum, who is the Supreme Chancellor. After this Senate scene, the Council is testing Anakin on his Force sensibility and finds out that there are many uncertainties in him. And Senator Palpatine is put up as a candidate to replace the Supreme Chancellor. And excuse me. And after all of this, we leave Coruscant with the original group and head back to Naboo. And we try to find the Gungans so they can protect the Naboo. The Gungans have vacated their city, as we find out, and Jar Jar explains that he thinks that they have gone to their secret ancient location. And after arguing, the real Queen reveals herself as the Gungan. And okay, sorry, I went ahead a little too far. So they reach Gungan, or Jar Jar takes them to the secret location, and the king and the group start talking with each other. And as they're talking, Padme, who is the queen's handmaid, we thought, reveals herself to be the real queen, and that the person who was dressed in all the queen's things, it was just her bodyguard or decoy. And then after, so they start talking with each other about the Gungans helping, and Padme convinces the king to have them help her, and the Naboo. So this leads into the climax of the movie with 3 different types of battles: one in the air, one on land, and a lightsaber duel. And the land battle is truly awful. Jar Jar somehow manages to wipe out a good amount of droids just by tripping over himself, which is one of the reasons why he's so hated. The second one is in space, which is very much like the land battle, is that Anakin gets into a spaceship or a ship and flies off just by he doesn't even know what he's doing. He flies off and saves the day just by mashing buttons, not knowing what he's doing, which is honestly kind of disappointing. And I'll get into that later. But the strong point of this movie is a lightsaber duel. Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. So Qui-Gon, there's a long battle. Qui-Gon is killed, and Obi-Wan, him and Darth Maul solo face off. Darth Maul knocks him down. Obi-Wan uses Force jumps back up and kills him. Well, obviously doesn't kill him, as we found out in the Clone Wars, but at that time people thought that he was dead. And the final scene of the movie is a celebration similar to the New Hope, where it's just a parade honoring the soldiers and everybody. Okay, so now I got the summary out of the way. We can get into the analysis of this movie, and I'm going to start with the good. So the first thing that I thought was really good about this movie is that the use of the 21st century technology in the Star Wars universe. And what I mean by that is CGI. Now, that gets a little, I think George Lucas uses a little bit, gets too trigger happy with that in Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith, but now, I mean, it's still pretty bad here, but we get to see actual space, good space battles, and just what it would, a space Star Wars should look like. Now, the second thing that I thought was good was the action. Now, it's not the war part per se, but I'm talking about the lightsaber duels. I think the lightsaber duels are the strongest thing about this movie. The battle between, like I just talked about, between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul is the best scene in the movie, easily, not even close. And I think they just found a way. I mean, it's just Jedis in their prime versus a Sith in their prime, and we did not see that in the original trilogy. I think that's what George Lucas was trying to do in this movie, is that show that what a real Jedi versus Sith battle should look like, and he fully delivered on that. I think it was really good. And another thing that I thought was good was the objectives, and what I mean by that is we know right away in the beginning of the movie what the heroes want to accomplish, and they stick through with that through the entire movie. In the very first scene is the ambassador, the Jedis are traveling to the Trade Federation to work out a deal, and because the Trade Federation is blockading Naboo, and that's what the entire movie is about. About the Trade Federation blocking and harassing Naboo. I think that's really good. Now, I mean, it might be a very good topic to do, but at least they knew what they were doing and stuck with it. And the final thing that I thought was good about this is the score. Obviously, John Williams is one of the greatest composers of all time. Duel of the Fates, people argue is the best of the Star Wars score or one of the best Star Wars scores of all time, and that's pretty impressive considering about how many good scores there are in Star Wars. So now I'm moving on to the parts that I thought were okay, not good, not bad, just in the middle. Nothing, didn't do anything special, didn't disappoint. And the only thing I could think about putting in here is the pacing. Now, excuse me, I thought that it could be the pacing. It wasn't like consistent, but it was like if it would be an action scene, it would be high level action the entire time. But if then it would go into like if it was a Senate scene, it'd be pretty slow for a while. I mean, I don't really care. I don't really care that much about pacing. I don't think it has that much effect on like my enjoyment of a movie. It's just never affected me that much. So I guess that's. I mean, it might affect more people more, but just to me, I didn't really see that as a major problem. And that was the only thing I put in the okay. So now we're going into the bad, and there's a lot to talk about here. And like I said in the good, the overuse of CGI. I put this is like the overuse of CGI. I think is bad because they haven't fully mastered it like they have today, so it just looks awful. But I also put like the use of 21st century technology in Star Wars in the good, because at this point we've never seen like Star Wars like that before. I just thought that was good, but that's also bad because CGI is not good and they use so much CGI. And another thing that was bad is the Gungans. Obviously, just horrible. He should have. I don't know what George was thinking. He should have introduced the clones. Like George wanted to have a land battle and have an army versus army, like army versus droids. And I don't know why you wouldn't just put the clones in here, start the Clone Wars early, and then you could have more. Like episode 2 would be the middle of the Clone Wars, and then episode 3 would be the end. I just don't understand why just have this random. Like it kind of feels like, this one, the Phantom Menace is kind of like its own movie. And then 2 and 3 are just like a different trilogy, I guess. Not trilogy, but like a like a Phantom Menace seems like a spin-off you would do. But I mean, I guess they kind of did that with A New Hope. So they might be trying to go over that template, but I don't know. It just feels I don't understand why they had to put Gungans in here. And then, like I just said, another bad thing is the kickoff to the prequels. This does not start like the main point of the prequels is to see Anakin turn to the dark side, and we don't even see Anakin become a Jedi, or at least start training. Which I don't understand what it like. That's like what I said before is that it just seems like a spin-off because it doesn't advance anything at all into the later movies. It was just like doing its own thing, which I thought was really weird. And like I just said, another bad thing is Anakin's age. They made him way too young, and they made Padme way too old. I mean, I think she's only like 16 in the movie, but Anakin's like 9, which is so weird to go from here that Anakin's just a little boy and Padme's, I mean, we don't actually know her age, but I think she's like around 16 to like a late, almost 20-year-old, and then have them date and get married in the very next movie. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't even know. And then, so you're probably wondering where Jar Jar, or why I haven't mentioned him in this, and that's because I created his own section for him, which is the last part. It's the awful. And Jar Jar Binks is obviously the worst idea in Star Wars history. It doesn't make any sense. It's like they were trying to add comedic humor. Star Wars, the original trilogy, they had humor, but it felt like it was like it wasn't like a kiddie, like an adult could enjoy the humor, like C-3PO walking in on Han Solo and Leia making out. Like that's funny. And then Jar Jar just making fart jokes is like for 4-year-olds. I don't understand what he was thinking to go for. And you could kind of in The Last Jedi, you could kind of see the downfall of George Lucas. Like started with the Ewoks. Like, it was a bad idea, but it's not the biggest deal in the like, it's not like the end of the world, but you could kind of see his mind kind of changing to become more like child friendly, I guess you could say. Like, Star Wars is child, like the New Hope, Empire Strikes Back is child friendly, but it's just not like a kids movie. Jar Jar Binks seems like it would be a kids movie, and it's a shame, because this movie could have been so much better if he just wasn't in it. And then the final thing I'm going to talk about in the awful is Metachlorians, the second worst idea in Star Wars history. This idea is so bad because it completely undermines our entire knowledge of the Force from the original trilogy. Like Obi-Wan said, it was a thing that is all around us. He explained it more like of a I don't even know what you'd say, but like a mystical thing, that kind of, like what it should be, like you would. But then in Phantom Menace, he just makes it like science class, like you're jotting down notes about atoms and then metachlorians. It's like a quantify, like you can assign how much like it's a countable number. It's such a bad idea. And so overall, my thoughts on this movie is very bad. I think it gets a lot more hate than it deserves. It's awful, but I think it's not as bad as people make it out to be. So, yeah, with all that said, thank you guys so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed it, and like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. See you guys.